Hi everyone, I'm April and welcome to Ask Vinnie Thompson Wise Wednesday. Today we'll talk about the top 10 new rules for the MLS with our guest speakers Shamir Fazal, broker of record in Keller Williams Landmark 2, and Mr. Lou Cardenas, operating principal of Keller Williams Landmark 1 and 2. So Vinnie, take it away.
Hey! Hercules, Hercules. All right, everybody. Yeah, that's right. Eddie Murphy can't beat him. All right, everybody. Once again, bringing you bringing you content. I got COVID on the brain. Bringing you content on my Wise Wednesdays. So for those of you that don't know, I have a machine behind me. Besides being well coached, the training I have from Keller Williams, my fellow agents. I have an inside joke of people who know me well and have taught me very well. One of those specifically is going to be Shamir Fazal. Inside joke is ask Vinnie Thompson. I turn, hey Shamir, how do you do X, Y, and Z? No, it's good. All right. Hang up the phone like, yeah, I got the answer. I did it. And then, of course, we have a plethora of information. The guru, Lou Cardenas, the owner of operating principal of Keller Williams Landmark 1 and 2. He's been in the business probably since I was a very small child. I think 5 years old or so. And he can definitely give us a lot of information and insights. He's been through how many shifts and all other good stuff. So I asked him to give some good information because I think things are turning around for the best for those in the New York market. And change is good. We changed from the MLS one key. And I'm like, I don't know if everybody's aware of these changes. So I said, let's do a topic about the changes that are happening. And I said, at least cover 10, if not more, of the changes that are happening in the New York market.
Kind of slow a little bit.
So that being said,
driving so damn slow.
Could you mute everybody for me, April? Yeah. So that being said, no further ado, I'll start with Shamir. So Shamir, tell us about the changes going on from MLS to one key.
There's a number of new changes they've adopted that are some are very remedial in the sense that we should already know them, but they're going to be more enforcing them now and policing them at a higher level. Couple of smaller changes we should all note is Stratus currently did not require for a while. They stopped requiring us to send in the MLS forms when they were assigned. At one point, we needed to. Originally a long time ago. Lou, remember this? We need to mail it in. Then after mailing it in, they started allowing us to fax it in. You remember fax machines, right, Vinny? That thing.
I remember. I remember that. My parents remember that. No.
And after that, at one point, when they adopted email, we were allowed to email it in. Not anymore currently, in terms of what they were over the last few years. We didn't need to send them in, but they would randomly audit us and request a copy of it. That's going to be gone. The new system now requires that when you take a listing today, you need to have it in the MLS, not 48 hours, by midnight tomorrow. So around 24 hours is the maximum time frame in terms of, or a little bit longer that you're allowed to have it in. So if you took it this morning at 9 a.m., you need to have it in the MLS, input it into the MLS live by midnight the following day. And the forms have to be uploaded by the next midnight of the next day, not business day, the next day. So this also applies on Saturdays, Sundays, and holidays when it comes to inputting the listing, making it available, and uploading the forms. Currently, Stratus do not have an upload tab as yet. So they're not looking for those forms while we're under quarantine. But I think once we get off quarantine and getting back to some consistency, they're going to add the upload tab and we're going to be required to upload those forms once they're signed. This is not going to be making the forms publicly available. just
Right.
for record keeping with Stratus. Currently, the only thing that we need to send in to Stratus, if we took an exclusive today, we'll need to email them a copy of the exclusive listing for their records.
Okay.
So that's
and
one of the very first ones that they have added when it comes to the rules that they've put in place with the merger with One Key.
Now, with the merger of One Key, who was added or were they added before, Shamir, to our MLS now? Before it was Queens, Long Island, Suffolk County. Who's been added since then?
I'm sorry, one second.
No worries. What you got in that cup there, man?
Not the right stuff.
Yeah, midday drinking. It's okay.
It's 5 o'clock somewhere, right?
That's correct.
So previously, it was a primary region was Long Island, Queens, and parts of Brooklyn. Even though we're allowed to take listings anywhere and input them as an out of area, in general, the primary areas were for MLS Long Island. Those were the primary areas. The One Key merger now allows us to have full access with all the brokers in Bronx and Westchester. So it's increased our market reach tremendously. I mean, what do you think about that, Lou, in terms of having such a wider net?
Well, it just gives all of us the ability to, especially when, so you talk about how long I've been in the business since Vinny was a baby. When I started in the business, it was literally when people would walk into your real estate office and ask about buying a home or renting an apartment or so on and so forth in that particular vicinity, right? So it has morphed into extending into neighborhoods, but now with the advent of internet marketing and just technology as a whole, we're able to transact pretty much anywhere. And with the merging of all these MLSs, now we're able to go into Westchester, the Bronx, and parts of Manhattan without having to leave your home, forget about your office. And the way that this current environment, what it's going to create is going to be, I think a lot more agents are going to be working from home and not necessarily going into an office, which saddens me because it's almost the same as like when you hear about like, for instance, we're hearing about California, the state universities may go back into may not reopen to have in-school classes come this fall. Well, that takes away a lot of the social growth that takes place when we all go to different places. Like Vinny, for instance, you are the master networker. Like you've flown across the country. We've crossed paths in different parts of the country where you're there specifically to network, and you've done a great job at it. That's also going to change. So what you're doing here is starting to shift from I'm flying to whatever part of the country to I'm bringing the country to me, right?
Absolutely.
So that's what the merging of this MLS is going to do for us.
Yeah, and it's almost like a globalization that's taking place around the world with people merging, and you being able to see a lot of what's going on with the market, right? Some reports are saying people are now want to leave the city to go to the suburbs, right? So that could also help with the merging of this MLS, because now I can see it and talk a little more about, Shamir, the cooperation as far as amongst agents, right? And how it used to be and like how it is now with the merging of these MLSs.
Well, the biggest thing with the merging of the MLS is obviously it gives us a wider reach of brokers to work with. We're always going to have agents that are difficult in terms of their approach. The good thing is with the systems in place, I think one of the biggest thing with the merging of the MLS is they want to make sure that the rules they have in place are enforced. And they're relying on us as participants to point out, not just bury a head in the sand and ignore people that are not following the rules. If there is an agent that's not following the rules, they have systems in place with us, with the equivalent of the zone chair. They're titled differently now. They'll be able to address and handle these issues. So they're looking for us to assist them in enforcing it so we can all make it a better MLS for everybody else. So I think cooperation is going to be better and better. I think especially in a shift in market where people realize they need to work with other agents to get properties sold, I think we'll be okay. I think we'll be okay with the merger. The merger is a good thing for us. It's growing our reach and where we can do business, and there's no reason why we shouldn't. You know, real estate is not local anymore. You know, when people ask me, well, how are you going to sell my house? Because your office is in Jackson Heights, my house is in Brooklyn. I was like, well, where did you find me? Online. So it's not local anymore. Like, you know, you don't need to go to the local real estate office in the corner to sell your property. In fact, you want to have a broker that gives you the exposure as wide as they can to be able to get a lot more people in the property.
I think this gives us the opportunity to actually help our industry work better together. And what I mean by that is this. So there are pros and cons to everything, right? Pros and cons to technology, right? We talked about the fact that technology can bring a faraway place right here to my desk at home. But it doesn't mean that it makes me an expert in that area, right? So one of the values that I think we bring as realtors is we know our area well, right? So we're a source of information for the general public. Now, when I go to sell a house in the Bronx, I don't know the Bronx as well, but I can sell it, right? I can negotiate it. I can look at historical prices in order to give myself an idea of what pricing might be. But I'm certainly not going to be the expert in the neighborhood as far as what's the transportation, where are the nearest schools, all of these things, right? So it gives us the opportunity to work better with the agents that are experts in that location. And if we understand that me cooperating with them and then them reciprocating to us here, we can do business in each other's backyards and help each other grow, right?
Absolutely, especially when it becomes where, let's say you're in a neighborhood, like you said, Lou, that you can sell in that neighborhood, but are you necessarily going to be working buyers? That'd be great for that local agent to get those buyers, or you work something out, or just a handoff. Say, hey, I'm not going to work with these buyers ever, but we sold the house, we co-broked, or whatever the case may be. I used to think it was a cliche, but I totally believe in it. That you co-broke or you go broke. I don't know who said it, Lou. They were saying, I think it was said that sometimes having listings is like a liability. The longer you have it, the longer you're liable for it, right? So you want to get it, sell it, and be done.
List it and sell it. It doesn't matter who sells it as long as you get it. It's the same theory as all these big chain stores, right? If they have all this inventory that they're not moving and then bringing more inventory and moving, if it sits on the shelves, they're losing money. It's the same thing for us. The more inventory that we keep on the shelf, it's not helping the consumer, it's not helping the client, and it's certainly not helping our bottom line, right?
And that brings us to our next question. Shamir, we spoke briefly about exclusives and all the rules they have now as far as what you can do or can't do with the exclusive. Did you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So the NAR, National Association of Realtors, which we're all members of once we're part of the MLS. And even if we're not a member of, even if we took the MLS of choice and we were members of New York State MLS, we still have to be members of NAR in terms of being access into one of those. So they have a policy in place that became effective May 1st, 2 weeks ago. Wow, 2 weeks ago. Where does the time go, right?
It's crazy.
Where it's called a clear cooperation policy. And basically what that means is if you take an exclusive, in which you're allowed to, and you can, if you took an exclusive and you advertise that exclusive anywhere publicly, and anywhere would mean any of the following: an email blast to the public, to people in your database, even though they're your friends, if they're not just agents from your office, that's considered advertising. An email to agents you've worked with in the past from other companies, that's considered public advertising. A yard sign on the property, a Facebook post, an ad in Instagram, an ad on Craigslist, all those apply to advertising the property publicly. And once you do that with an exclusive, you are required to put input the listing on the MLS within 24 hours of any business day. So that would apply Mondays through Fridays. Saturdays, Sundays, and public holidays do not apply. Federal holidays do not apply. So if you took a listing on a Monday that's an exclusive, and you email blast or Facebook post Monday evening, then you need to have it in the MLS by the same time, 24 hours the following day. Otherwise, it's an automatic $2,500 fine initially and $100 per day from when you advertise the property to when you don't put it on the MLS. So it's very critical that people understand that, you know, the days of taking the exclusive and holding it on the side to kind of get your own buyer in there to try to double end, which I think is a scarcity mentality to begin with anyway, because it doesn't work in the best interest of your client. Those days are gone, because if you can be part of the MLS, then you should follow the rules that we all abide to. And if you don't want to be a part of the MLS and follow those rules, then you might as well not be a member of the MLS. If you want to be one of those companies that don't want to play nicely in the sandbox with everybody else.
You know, it's funny you mentioned that, Shamir. I start off most of my listings with the same, you know, spiel or story. You know, Mr. Seller, I have zero intentions of me being the one to sell your home. Quite possibly there's an agent out there who's been working with somebody else that's going to bring the buyer. And I want to expose your house as much as I can to get it sold for, you know, the most amount of money, the shortest amount of time, with a motivated buyer, you know, for this very same reason. And I was surprised as I work in different areas how people are still doing, or were at the time, exclusives. You know, I had particularly one house in Bay Ridge. I remember they said to me, the neighbors said to the owner, like, what's going on over there? Like, well, what do you mean? She says, well, you know, we have an open house. This is an open house. I never see, like, there was like a line out the door, you know, because there are apparently a lot of exclusives going. Look, right. People ran the business the way they wanted to, but I mean, like, it was like February. They're like, Pierce, we want to get in, bang, bang, bang. So I think it helps, like, the consumer, like what you said, to play nice in the sandbox. Right?
Yeah, no, it's also in the best interest of your clients to advertise the property and expose it. It doesn't really make any sense. Now, just to be clear, we are still allowed to take exclusives, but we're extremely limited in terms of the marketing that we can do. You know, to be honest, it has to be, if you took an exclusive today because your client selected the option to do so, even though you advise them that it's not necessarily in their best interest to not have it exposed, you're only allowed to one-on-one contact your clients that might be interested in the property, and only allowed to share with the agents in your office only. Right. Now, to follow up, if one of your agents from your office were to broadcast that property out or expose it out to their clients via an email blast or Facebook, then you violated the rule and now you must put it in the MLS. So you have to be really selective if you're going to approach it with an exclusive, and make sure your clients understand what the limitations are. I think anybody being told what the limitations are is going to select the option to go public on the MLS. Like, it doesn't make any sense otherwise.
And I think if it's explained correctly to the seller, like Vinny said, I basically say to the seller, if I sell it, fantastic. However, my real job is to give it as much exposure as possible. And the most effective way of doing that is utilizing the 23,000 licensees that are on this Long Island Board of Realtors, right? So if I can
40,000 now with one key.
What's that?
40,000 now with one key.
40,000 now, yeah. So I mean, that's the real exposure, you know. Like, yeah, it's great. I can put it on my websites and everything that Keller Williams does for our sellers. But at the end of the day, my job is really the liaison. It's your advisor. It's disseminating the information, pre-qualifying buyers, making sure that the other realtors respect your wishes and your privacy, and so on and so forth. That's what they're hiring us for, right? At the end of the day, it's really our negotiating skills, our advising and our economic understanding of what's going on in the neighborhood and real estate pricing, right?
Yeah, and I would add to that, Lou. I know for me, I've had listings, and I hope I have a good name out there where when I get it, Lou, I want to get it done. I want to get it sold. You come, bring a buyer, give a great price, decent financing. Let's get it done. And the longer I have it up, I've seen some agents from me as my savior. Oh man, thank God this guy brought a buyer, because I really feel like I get a chance to co-broke with somebody I probably don't know, and share with somebody and get it sold, right? Because sometimes it's hard doing buyer and seller, and I think having 40,000 people that you're broadcasting this to now, I think is great, because people are moving upstate, they're moving downstate, they're moving out of state, and you can't know everybody, so it's great to use that marketing, to get it sold. And these are some of the best practices.
I will say that the one advantage that I will give to having the buyer and the seller in the same transaction, what we call double lending, is we understand the transaction better, because we have more information than we do if we're only on one side, right?
Right.
I think that that's about the only advantage, which is, by the way, a pretty substantial advantage if you think about it, right? Because a lot of things go on. We have to entrust, if I'm representing the seller and somebody else brings the buyer, I'm entrusting all of the information that I'm receiving from that agent as being 100% correct, right? So that's a lot of trust to put on someone that you may have never have done a deal with. And as you guys know, a lot of times we're let down, and we have to do, at least from my perspective, I always feel like I have to do the job of both agents anyway, because I want to make sure that what's being said and what's being done is done in a timely manner, and it's done correctly and ethically and morally. You know what I mean?
Right. And you're getting it done.
That's it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whatever it takes attitude. That's the way you got to do it.
So, Shamir, what are some other big changes they had from the old MLS to now One Key that you noticed?
A couple of let me just I'm just going to jump into my notes for a second. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Loud and clear.
Okay, good. So the small things that they popped up in terms of stuff. So in the past, we were allowed to, let's say Lou worked in Mama XYZ real estate, and I'm over in KW, and we both come across the client, the seller that wants to sell, and it's two parties, and one loves Lou and one loves me, and they want us both to work together. Those type of collaboration has happened in the past where we can both take the listings, even though we're separate companies, with an appropriate agreement signed by all parties, acknowledging that they can be paying X amount of commission, if they both companies sell them. So there'll be a listing end and a selling end. In other words, both companies will have the property active on the MLS. What happened is that type of duplication where you see two listings on the MLS, usually you would